Yes, and Arro is a librarian with a specialty in oral histories.
Right, right. I wrote a book about oral history, and I've used oral history as a methodology, and I have
Oh,
spent a lot of time working on theory of why oral history is uh, the methodology I prefer to use as as a feminist, as a Marxist, as a way to capture the untold stories that often elude more traditional historians.
I totally understand that. They do seem to forget a lot of us, or forget to mention that we're gay. Okay, so I'd like to just introduce everyone. Uh, I'm Suzy Shelor, your host, and today with me I have Arro Smith, who is working on a project called the Queer History Our Stories, which basically is, and I say basically because I don't, the whole thing is going to be such a, it's so amazing and full of, I think, energy and wonderful stories, also sad stories, but we came out on top. um and and so that's going to be great. Aro is laying the foundation for this, and I think it's going to be amazing. And then, of course, I also here with Toby Johnson, who has an absolute laundry list of accomplishments and achievements, including working on this particular project called the Austin Coalition on Aging. And we're going to discuss that as well, because a lot of us are getting older, and we need some guidance, especially with what's going on in the government right now. How do we know that we're going to be able to hang on to the rights, to visit our partners, to get to be married? I mean, they are coming after that. And I think that this is desperately needed here in Austin. We're the capital. We should be leading. And so I'm really excited to hear what's going on there. So shall we start with Toby? Would you like to talk about that and let us know about the organization?
Okay, let me tell you a little bit about, or speak a little bit about the LGBT Coalition on Aging and its spinoff or project, the Memory Project, LGBTQ History in Austin, Texas. The coalition was formed in 2018. There had been a series of articles in the general press emphasizing Austin as the new retirement place. And an article appeared in a national gay magazine announcing Austin as the retirement place in the United States for LGBT seniors. Well, none of us knew that was happening, and nobody in town knew that was happening. Um, there was a meeting at the MCC about issues in aging, and that was sponsored by an organization called Austin Up, which was formed by a woman named Teresa Ferguson, I think, who was interested in helping the senior services coordinate with one another. And out of that meeting, two town halls were called that got together gay community leaders, some of the A-gays in town, the rich people, and social services and people who were working in um, community organizations. I was looking at that meeting this morning, thinking about it. Really, this is 2018, not so long ago, but we didn't even think about using pronouns or having any of that. Queer was not one of the words that we were using because we were talking about seniors. We hadn't this idea of gender consciousness that is so prevalent now hadn't come into being yet. Although one of the major issues, which we recognized even then, was that it was trans people who were having the most problem being served by senior services because they just didn't understand. And this was particularly true for people in residential programs. Well, Prime Timers, which is a social organization for senior gay men, would get calls occasionally asking, "What is the gay retirement home in Austin?" And we had no answer for that. And that was the original intent of the Coalition on Aging, was to survey the retirement centers in town and find out which were gay friendly. Then around the same time as that, the city declared of the Austin gay friendly, age friendly program. The city of Austin was recognizing the same thing, that we are becoming a retirement center. So there is a city effort to become age friendly, and we got people in our steering committee into those committees so that we were able to let everybody know that there are going to be gay, lesbian, and bi and trans people showing up in these retirement centers, a lavender wave, and nobody knew when it was going to come. So you better get ready, and we would help you train. Well, so to some extent, we have done that, and we are continuing to do that. It's become a little bit more of an organization of social service professionals um, who are really in the thick of it and being able to network with one another. But we still have an interest in recognizing the needs of seniors in Austin. And one of the needs of seniors, as those of us who have become seniors have discovered, is to remember our lives and honor the life that we have lived and the friends we knew and the people who've gone before us. Modern internet culture moves so fast, the phones move so fast, everybody is living in such a present moment right now with everything in the present and forgetting the past. And the past is part of who we are. And so we want to preserve it by collecting, Suzy, as you said, collecting stories.
Yeah, and I think that I think I really can't remember who said this, but if you don't write your own history, someone else is going to write it for you. And I think that that is dangerous. So we need to grab this and make sure that people do remember, and that they're taken care of by people who aren't anti-queer. And I really like the word queer. And I remember being called queer, when it was not the best word. But I feel like not only is it a reclamation, but it also kind of, the alphabet doesn't have to be there. Queer means all of us. So maybe we could stop self-dividing, and come together as the queer community.
At one point, sometime in the future, I would love us to have a conversation about these words.
Okay.
The words are so charged that we're taught to like some and not like others, and to value some and to feel that they're opposed to each other, as opposed to all being part of the same thing. But that's a future conversation.
That's another day. Okay, well, and then speaking about our history, I would like to now go to Arro. And Arro, I do have a question for the Queer History Our Stories project. Would this include all of Texas or Austin specifically?
Um,
Or
I'm working with Toby primarily on the Austin component of this.
Right.
But we're calling the Memory Project,
Right.
which is the term Dennis Patty came up with.
Oh, okay.
Sometime we'll talk about Dennis Patty, who's
I
a
would love
major.
I would love that.
But I am recently retired. I am an oral history historian. I love traveling. I'm willing to talk to almost anyone and let them tell their stories. And what I'd like to talk about a little bit is the difference between oral history methodology and journalism. what I love about oral history is that a good oral history interview lets the subject tell their own story.
Yes.
And the interviewer simply prompts them to start talking. When, as opposed to a journalist who comes with a list of questions that need to be answered, when you're a journalist with questions, you come with a bias about what the answers might be or should be. A good oral historian comes willing to listen and let the subject tell their own story.
And that's again, we have to write our own history. And when you talk to someone who was there, it really does put things in perspective, especially if they were younger when others were there and they saw things. It's just, and I do think that as people get older, we kind of become invisible to other people. Maybe they kind of look through you; they don't really look at you anymore. And so from that, I've noticed that there are a lot of young gay people, well, a lot of American young people, but specifically we're talking about the queers. And so I find that uh, the younger group just doesn't care. They don't care. They think I was literally told that my experiences as a gay woman had nothing compared to a trans woman, what she's gone through. And I just thought, you don't understand why you're able to do this. So many people went through absolute hell, died for your ability to do this. Matthew Shepard, my God. I don't, so I'm so excited about this history project. And I just, the memory care project is just going to be so awesome. I'm so excited. So where are we now with the memory care project?
Not
Not
memory care.
memory care.
I'm sorry.
Memory care is when we don't have our memories anymore, and that's a totally different thing. Very
That's
important, but
I'm sorry. That's another show. But it does bring me to a question. What do you do with folks like that? Will we have, Toby, will we have a center for people with dementia who are gay? Or we,
The co-chair of the Coalition on Aging right now, Faith Lane, is head of the Alzheimer's Society in Austin.
oh,
So
excellent.
there clearly are links, and part of what's on our website is links to surveys. People like to take surveys and answer questions and sort of get their input in. And several of those surveys involve either being a caregiver with people who are having memory problems, or how you are feeling yourself with your memory stuff, and specifically addressed to the LGBTQ community.
Oh, that's
So we are
wonderful.
recognizing that. But again, where is the gay Alzheimer's unit in Austin? I don't think we know.
Right.
But
Well,
maybe every Alzheimer's unit. I mean, that would be the goal, is that for every Alzheimer's, every social service in Austin, and we're the blue dot, so we ought to be. Everybody in Austin ought to be welcomed for who they are. That's where we're trying. I think all of the effort of gay activism all these years has been to make us part of the normal range of society. And let me just say, Suzy, I just can't help but say this. I don't like the word queer as much,
okay.
specifically because it emphasizes strangeness and difference and not fitting in, as opposed to what I think is the better message, is that we fit, we're part of it all. There's nothing weird about being trans, it's just human.
I get
Everything's
it.
just human.
I
And I
totally,
know that that's also the reason for choosing queer as an umbrella term, is to say that. So it works both ways.
right. And as we're discussing this, and again, another show, but I think it's important that we own our nomenclature. And I think that there is definitely a rift, right, between generations on that. So it would be very interesting to discuss that. And since I said memory care, let's slide back in to what Arro is doing. And I think
Tell us about the Watson Chateau.
oh yes, okay, so we want to know about our history, and we want to know about the chateau, which is that in Austin?
Yes, yes, it's on
Okay.
the very edge of the University of Texas campus.
Oh,
It
okay.
was acquired by the University of Texas in the 70s as part of a vast expansion. It was saved from demolition through through some interpersonal relationships with the two gay men that lived in it, and it was basically built around the university, built around it. Most people do not know it exists. It is hidden. It has been hidden, and it has an interesting story about gay life uh, in the 50s and 60s and 70s, um, when it was not possible to be an out gay man. Um, and so the Watson Chateau is interesting on many by many on many aspects. It's an most to me it's most interesting as a story about the closet. And when we talk about gay history, we want to, everyone wants to talk about, no one wants to talk about the closet. But the closet was a necessary part of existing and thriving
Yep.
as a gay person in the prior century. And so the Watson Chateau is hidden. Not too many people know about it. The university would prefer that no one knows about it so they could make it disappear and use that land for other things.
Oh,
And pardon me?
we're gonna fix that.
I hope so. I hope so. What I want to do, and what other activists, especially Marta Stefanik, who has been leading the charge on this project, what we want to do is make it more visible and to make it a site of gay history within Austin.
That's
And
brilliant.
another site of gay history is the West 4th Street district. Toby has been working on a historical marker for this part of downtown to officially make that a site of gay history as well. The
Yeah.
4th Street project is the 4th Street marker. That is a different story. That's not a story about the closet. That's a story about being out and proud and having a real visual presence within the community. The Watson Chateau is about an earlier, somewhat earlier part of our history where it was impossible to be out and proud. And
Yes.
so, these two things that Toby and I are working on are related because it's like two sides of the coin of
Yeah.
our history.
Yeah.
You see, there's this great change when suddenly there began to be gay bars. There was, I believe the club is called the Manhattan Club, which was on Congress. It was gay at night and not during the day. You had to go in the back entrance. Then gradually, and so at some point, then you end up with open gay bars all over town, and specifically in that 4th and Colorado area. What's interesting is that City Council has passed a resolution calling for there to be a marker acknowledging the role of the LGBTQ community in Austin.
Oh, I love that.
And Councilman Quadri's office presented this, and council passed it. It's now been thrown back to the city council and to city bureaucracy to figure out how this is done. I've spoken with the Architectural Review Committee. Arro's been involved with me and kind of composing. We had a small ad hoc committee which composed a text. We weren't given any guidelines, so we don't really know how long it was supposed to be. And the people who asked for it don't know either. So it's kind of floating around in the ethers, as we were talking about. But impressive to see that the city says, yes, we should acknowledge that this had been a gay part of town, that there have been gay people part of the life of Austin. These are the stories which we're hoping to collect. You know, who were some of these people, and who were the famous ones, and who were the unknowns
Which
who
governor, I mean,
produced.
which mayor was it that declared the day as Austin Pride Day? It was the mayor before, I want to say he was in the 70s, like 70, maybe 8 or something, but he declared Austin had an official day.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. And then we did the march in late 90s, and that was the first march, I think, on the Capitol.
Well, there were political marches before that.
Right, right. No. I
Or
mean,
there were pride marches. We
this
did have
was
political marches.
right. This was a pride march, but we didn't have a pride group. You know what
Right.
I mean? We were just like, let's gather and go shout and wave our flags, but we didn't have an intention. We just
Well, to make the history clear, at least as I understand it, because Austin is the state capital, we had the centers of the political organizations here. Dallas and Houston had big pride parades. San Antonio and El Paso had pride parades. And there was an effort not for these not to compete with each other so that people could move around. And Austin never had pride at Pride Week because we had an every other year march on the Capitol as a political event.
right.
When the legislature was in town.
When the legislature was in town.
Right.
Yes, that's why it was every other. Then as it happened, back around the time when Kip and I had just started newly running Liberty Books, Diane Russell questioned why who was partners, I think, with Kathy Cook. These were people who were big in ALGPC, the political caucus, and AIDS Services of Austin. And there was a question: why don't we have pride? And a guy who did drag, Pete Robles, who now lives in Dallas, was a drag queen, had performed in San Antonio at Gay Fiesta, which was something that San Antonio's gay liberation, which was called Saga, which I was chair of when this thing all got started. Saga put on a gay fiesta, kind of not a spoof, but a spinoff of San Antonio's fiesta. So we had a party in the park. And Pete said, why don't we have that in Austin? And because Austin City has Fiesta Gardens, which is that party house, event center on the lake. So that was perfect to have gay fiesta there. My partner, Kip Dollar, with Diane's help, pulled together the first committee, which met in the front room at the Austin History Center. So all of this comes back around, and it was from that meeting that the first gay fiesta happened, and first 2 gay fiestas, and then from that the Austin Pride evolved.
That's so cool. Well,
and all that starts in 89.
Right.
So that's when Austin begins having gay pride, which then ends up being we end up with a rivalry between the LGB people and the Q people over here. So then there is a counter demonstration is queer bomb. So they part of the way they oppress us is by making us fight with each other.
And yeah, that's so true. And I think I still think dividing, like changing the flag and dividing us by letters, and we're doing it to ourselves. We're just not, this isn't unity. I mean, that's how I feel about it. Not that we're talking about that, but I kind of feel like if, we had a rainbow, it included everybody. Why do we have to add colors? It's just not, it doesn't make sense. But again, my opinion. So, okay. So who, I think, Arro, someone named Peter Maxon. Can you tell me who that
Yeah.
is? And
Peter Maxon is a distinguished historian of architecture, worked for the Texas State Historical Commission for decades. And when we got together to start documenting the history of the Watson Chateau, we arranged an oral history interview with Peter Maxon to talk about the Watson Chateau, the people involved with the Watson Chateau, and that era of Austin history. And so
And that's available.
And that's on the there's a link to that on an Oakwood Cemetery history site, and a link to it on the Watson Chateau site that Marta has put together, and
from the Memory Project site.
And
because I've now got a spot about the Watson
Chateau.
Chateau.
There we go. There we go. So
I think, go ahead.
What that is an interesting interview with Peter, because he is wise and more senior than me, and he knows his history, and he was part of that culture of the closet when we had no choice. And so it's a great little periscope back into the 1960s and 70s.
And you'll have stuff
but
like
what it does not include, and what we do not have, are other perspectives. We have these privileged perspectives for men like me, men like Toby, men like Peter Maxton, the two gay closeted men that lived at the chateau. We do not have the other voices.
Black, Latina,
right, right.
lesbians.
And that is going to be our challenge.
Right.
It's not easy, but it's very possible to get the privileged voices.
Right.
What I'm interested in is, trying to find a way to include everyone. And that's our main problem.
Okay.
And that's always been our problem.
Right.
That's the problem with history in general.
And one of the issues that it just happened is there's no Black Pride anymore. So, that's going to be missing quite a bit. That was kind of a big deal. So, and that was independent of any other pride. That was just Austin.
And maybe we just need one pride, but the principles involved need to
it can't be
extra focus on pulling these other voices in, making sure these voices are at the table.
But we can't be sponsored the way we are and not follow those people's ideas, and I think that you're right. In Austin, we have a particular problem. But I think maybe there's a better way than pride. There's no, pride has just become a commercial, in my opinion. So I think that with this project, that it will uplift those voices once we can find them. And I know, there are a ton of them. We had Black Pride. They just, they're leaderless now. So with that particular group, so we have tons of Black queers in this town, I can promise you. We just got, and Latino, we can't forget them, and Asian, and Palestinian. I have a friend who's
Well, you see, here's the curious problem that as you describe these divisions within the queer culture, then we also want a term that includes everybody. But
yes,
nobody wants to be in the same group with each other.
that's right. That, well, I think, I honestly, I think queers would be in any group that was fighting against injustice for certain people. I can't imagine them not. The problem is other people don't want to partner with us. That's where I see the issue.
Well, okay. Well, that, yes, in a way, that's been the problem from the beginning, that the Black queers didn't feel solidarity with white queers, even though there was Black and white men together, which was an organization which was trying to combine them. The Hispanics have a different experience of what it means to be gay from white people. There's a whole different understanding of gender and the role of sort of the Nelly men in the family. We don't have that in white culture. Hispanic culture has it and honors the a kind of cross-dressing, but it would be wrong to call them transsexual. So they're not transsexuals, it's something else. Everybody's got different versions of these things. And we want to both join together politically because from the other side, we're all just queers.
Yeah.
Uh, 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 but But within our own, we all need to honor the things that are special to us. Gay men have a certain way of looking at the world and a kind of art and sense of beauty and service. That's important to value. Women have a sense of, lesbians have a sense of being social servants and being maternal to the world, not just to their own children. Uh, Transsexual people have an experience of how you can change your life, rearrange what was given to you. One of the great models in the spiritual traditions is change, a transformation, a conversion. And transsexual process is about that kind of experience. Each of these things has its meaning, and want to we want to both lump everybody together and keep everybody separate. And that is a difficult task.
So what would be your word for the LGBT community if you had one word? Because it seems to
That's your
default.
question, Toby.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I observe, I go back in gay history to San Francisco, 1970, and at that time, the Mattachine Society, of were now the older gay men. I was a young hippie. I remember going. I was involved in a gay organization, a telephone hotline. Uh, uh, and I got on some sort of a radio show with these two older gay men from the Mattachine Society. And I was so aware, they called themselves homophile, and because they didn't want to be homosexual because that implied sex, but homophile emphasized love and relationship, which of course is true. That is what we want. Um, so I was a young hippie and I was gay and I was aware of how different I was from them. And part of that is sexual attraction. I was a young kid. I didn't want to think that I was going to later be one of these 50-year-old men. The young don't want to think of themselves getting old. And now today, gay means those old men, especially the old men who had AIDS and died or are just surviving, whereas queer are young people. Now, in a few years, the queers are going to be old people and the young kids are not going to want to be queers, and there'll be a new word.
Well,
I sort of think I think the word is going to be pride, just used in this general state. I went to like Pride Radio. You know, there is this radio station in Austin called Pride Radio, which plays the music that they used to play in the bathhouses in the 70s.
Yeah.
But it never says gay. It's advertised by gay bars, but it's Pride. And that kind of just you means.
Yeah.
But even better would be the, excuse me, what even better would be the word glad. Glad, Glad, would be the great word because it picks up on the good side of gay. You know, the nice thing about the word gay was that it was what we called ourselves, and it meant happy. It meant
Yes, but
happy
it
and
didn't,
joyful. And that's what we want to be. We don't want to be, well, we want to be happy people.
but it doesn't apply to lesbians. When you think of gay, just as
Lesbians, well, that was what
Amen.
started the
I'm just
division
saying,
was lesbian. Now, you know, but earlier lesbians
weren't
called
counted.
themselves gay.
No.
And lesbians didn't like the term lesbians.
Well, no, we didn't. But to revert to say we used it, but the word gay was always very clear that that was not included for. That's why they had to come up with an L, you know, because the gay did not include us. Very clearly it did not include us because we had to come up with a whole new name. The Black community who was gay didn't have to do that. Just
Yes, they did because they still don't have a term.
They're gay.
Are they gay? Not now.
A gay Black man is gay.
Does he call himself gay today?
Yeah.
They would supposedly we're not using the term
No,
gay.
I'm talking about during
gay
the
means men. Oh, back
I'm talking
then.
about the time when you guys were calling it gay. It was you guys. It was not us. We were just pushed in underneath that. And you know, you're a gay person because you like to, but we got divided. We were no longer considered gay. We were considered lesbians and we had our own letter and we didn't, I mean, I don't think that's not how that's the women have just been completely pushed away, you know, and the women were the ones who were there, damn it, during the AIDS crisis. The lesbians were the ones who were there. And so that's something that's always got on my nerves, that we were just called gay, and that wasn't even true. You know,
but now you're calling for everybody to be called queer.
Yes.
And there's no distinction between lesbians and gays in queer.
No, or trans, no.
So why not gay?
Because
because it's an older term, not because it doesn't apply. I think each generation has to come up with a new term because each generation doesn't want to be old later.
Well,
and are not sexually attracted to older. The nature of homosexuality has to do with sexual attraction. So the link between us is our sexual attraction.
I think the link between us is absolutely who we prefer to live our lives with as partners. But the fact is, the word gay is rooted in a male patriarchal kind of situation where lesbians weren't even recognized. I don't think that's right. For me, the word gay, when I was called gay, I was like, I'm not a dude, you know, I'm not. And so I don't fall under that category. And so if we use the word gay, it's a word that's rooted in patriarchy and it still pushes women away. So we need an inclusive word that does not make anybody feel like an outsider, like the trans community, you know, or the bisexual community, for God's sake. They never get any kind of, you know, recognition unless it's negative. So that's just how, I mean, that's my feeling. If we're going to have an umbrella term, I think gay is the wrong one. But again,
well, I'm going to agree with you because history has passed, not because it's a bad term. I think in the 1970s, when I was living in San Francisco, women were called gay and called themselves gay. And lesbian implied a particular kind of political and lesbian separatism.
What about a gay bar versus a lesbian bar?
Two totally separate things.
Two separate things. Although, let me say that the two best evenings in my life in gay bars, one in Palo Alto and one in northern Marin County, were in bars, and this is back in the 70s, were in bars that were equally men and women, and and the lights were turned on.
Okay.
So that the bars were more like being in a Denny's.
Okay.
And there was a joy and a share and fun, and people were dancing together.
How many
And
lesbian bars were there at that time?
oh, this is San Francisco in the 70s, you know. So it
There's
was
there
all mixed.
there are like
In town, the lesbian and
there
gay
are
bars were
three
separate.
lesbian bars in the entire country.
Today,
Yes.
I think,
New York, San
well,
Francisco, and I think Santa Cruz or Los Angeles, one of those. It's just not. People, lesbians they don't go to those bars because we're different people. We don't go there for specifically for sex. We don't drink as much, you know, so it doesn't, lesbian bars can't sustain themselves. They
right.
almost always turn into gay bars. Lesbians turn into gay bars. So, you know, again, back to the semantics. But if there aren't any lesbian bars around, of course we're going to go to the gay bars. Where else would we be accepted? You know? So yeah, I'll bet there were a lot of lesbians there. I go to if when I used to
I
go out
think
to the gay
what
bars.
I would like is to, and unfortunately, because of recent political shenanigans, it's going to be harder to do this.
Mhm.
But taking the word queer, which still rubs me a little the wrong way,
Okay.
and rubs Toby the wrong way, because we're simply
Yeah.
different generations, and we've got trauma. We
And I
have
don't
trauma.
want to offend anyone.
But if we could abbreviate queer to just Q,
Then we sound
okay.
we could all be Q.
okay.
Now, this would
Not
cause
QAnon.
so
But
much
that's a problem.
consternation among certain conservative conspiracy people. But you know, I love causing consternation among those people. Anyway, so that's the queer in me.
I think we should do that. I love that.
Well, isn't it amazing that they chose queer?
Q.
Chose the Q. They chose
Right,
the
What if
Q,
we,
and it's sort of based on that Nelly character in Star Trek, isn't it?
I have no idea.
I
Q,
don't know,
who
but
was
that's hilarious.
a
Data.
strange being that appeared,
Oh, wow.
and so Q, and so
We need
they
to
end up
take
calling
Q back.
themselves queer.
We need to take Q back.
Well, you know what? I think it would be really fun to
Make Q gay again.
yeah. Yes, I love that. So if we have a giant queue just behind us, I think that would be really cool. And then you could have a non and little bitty letters. Letters queer.
Oh, you know, one of the funniest things of the internet, especially in the early days, you know, the way keywords work, if you put in your profile that you're not gay, you come up as gay because it finds gay. It finds the word gay. So all those people who were insistent they weren't gay would come up in gay searches. And then they would have to insist, I'm not gay.
I'm not in real life.
More searches, more hits, more hits.
Ah, I love it. That's cool. We don't do SEO anymore. That's a shame.
Well, so, you know, to kind of bring our conversation around again, you know, we're talking about history. And as we get to joking, we talk about our earlier experiences and our interpretations and how I experienced it in the 70s and how Arro experiences it in the 90s, 80s. Okay. And Suzy, you're getting it even later, and you're getting it from a woman's perspective.
Yes.
So a different way of seeing the world. And so the point of our telling these stories is kind of to begin collecting these different perspectives. Everybody's got their own perspective on reality.
Yep.
And I have a book called Gay Perspective, which is about, so I got to get an ad in here.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Where can they buy that, by the way?
On the internet, Amazon.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, gosh, thank you guys for coming by, and let's do this again. I want to thank Arro. I'm sorry. It's like the band. I just want to say it. I would like to thank Arro Smith and Toby Johnson for swinging by and talking about what I think are kind of two complementary things: the history, and then the aging, the memory project. And I think it's complementary, honestly. I think that the folks that are going to uh, pay attention to the history are exactly the kind of folks who, as you said, Toby, are going to get old. We're getting there. We're getting there. I'm 54, so I'm right there with y'all, sort of.
Okay. Thank you very much. Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
All right, we'll talk to you later.